look at him go all the way up across the racetrack. He's down on the white line in part of the corner.
Never give up. 5 laps to go.
I can remember when our good old buddy, the late Benny Parsons, first saw Greg Biffle running winter heat in Tucson on ESPN. He said, and what impressed Benny was just what we saw a moment ago, that Biffle used every inch of racetrack and did whatever he could to drive the wheels of that car from lap 1 to lap 100 that night, and somehow managed to pass cars that were a lot better than him.
He drove for me a few races in his rookie season in this division, and he used up more than the racetrack. He'd use up the right side of my car up against that wall.
Jimmie Johnson trying to hold on for 5 more laps. It has been the kind of night that drivers dream of. Mike.
And, Doc, I think you mentioned earlier that he may be serving notice, and that may be the case. You know, as the chase begins to shape up, it's only natural for teams to start sizing themselves up against the competition. And when it comes to the 48 team, they are not intimidated by anyone. I spoke with Chad Knaus a little bit earlier this week, and he says, hey, we beat the 24 team last year, a team that ended the season with a record 30 top 10 finishes. He says that battle was brutal, and it's given them the confidence to believe they can beat anyone no matter how good a season they're having. In particular, he was referencing the 18 and the 99. They feel like they've got a legitimate shot at 3 championships in a row, and they look pretty good tonight.
Mike, you can count on one finger the number of drivers in the 60-year history of NASCAR that have won 3 consecutive Cup titles in a row. The only one to do it was Cale Yarborough.
Tough competitor in his time, no doubt. And Jimmie Johnson is at this day and time. And I think as we see A.J. Allmendinger finally taking that spot away from David Reagan and those 3 points that Reagan needed.
Back to 20th position and back to 20 points. Back to 20 points behind. They back up, start 14th position, back to 20 points behind. And these positions are important for A.J. Allmendinger because of the fact he is trying to get this car in the top 35 in point standings.
I think he's done that pretty solidly. Right now, as the owner's point sit, Robbie Gordon is in that 35th spot. Michael Waltrip 34th.
2 laps to go for Jimmie Johnson to pick up his 3rd win in 2008. And what has impressed me as much as what he's done on the racetrack is what Chad Knaus and these guys have done behind the wall. Despite the fact they had the car that had everybody covered, every time they came in, they would go outside the envelope and make an adjustment to try to get the car better.
Well, you can't sit there and be too careful with this. You have a good race car. You can't let those guys catch up. I think everybody in the sport's done that at some point in time, and Chad Knaus wasn't going to let that happen tonight with this race car and this race team.
Jimmie Johnson began the week coming out to his hometown of El Cajon. He wanted to give back his 2nd annual golf tournament to raise money, $500,000 for the Habitat for Humanity to build homes for people who didn't have them. They handed the keys, he and wife Shandy, to a young single mom who had 3 children who didn't have a place to live. But tonight, at this racetrack, it was time for Jimmie Johnson to take back the lead point as the top contender for the 2008 Chase Championship. Jimmie Johnson takes the win.